Valoric adjusted his posture as the doors of the briefing chamber slid open with a low mechanical hum. The room fell silent the moment High Commander Talon entered. Talon's presence commanded attention without effort. His tall, broad frame bore the marks of decades of conquest, deep scars etched into gray Salvari skin, trophies of wars that had ended entire civilizations. His eyes were sharp, calculating, and utterly without warmth. Valoric swallowed. He was not a soldier. He had never fired a weapon in anger or watched a battlefield drown in blood. He was an intelligence analyst, one of thousands who cataloged defeated species after their wars were already over. His role had always been safe, distant, theoretical. Until now, you have been selected for field observation, Talon said flatly. Valoric's chest tightened. Field observation, sir? You will accompany the Dominion's auxiliary fleet to the Meridian system. Talon continued, activating a holographic projection with a flick of his clawed hand. A blue and green planet rotated slowly in the air. Meridian 7, Talon said, a colonial world occupied by a recently emerged species. Humans. Valoric recognized the name. Barely. Humans were insignificant in most Dominion files, an asterisk at the edge of explored space. A species that had achieved interstellar travel only 2 centuries ago. No grand empires. No legendary wars. No reason to care. The Kravasi Empire has laid claim to the system, Talon said. The humans have refused evacuation. Valoric hesitated before speaking. And our role, Commander? We observe, Talon replied. The Kravasi will remove the humans by force. Your task is to document their military response. A pause. Consider it an educational assignment. Valoric felt a surge of excitement and confusion. How many human defenders? Approximately 800, Talon said, and the Kravasi? 12,000. The imbalance was absurd. This will be brief, Talon added, something like satisfaction flickering across his expression. I expect your report within 3 standard cycles. Valoric bowed his head. Yes, Commander. As he left the chamber, the numbers echoed in his mind. 15-1. There was no battle here, only extermination. The observation vessel departed the next morning. It was sleek and fast, built to watch wars without touching them. No heavy weapons, no thick armor. Its purpose was simple. Record everything, interfere with nothing. Valoric stowed his equipment and made his way to the main observation deck, where a senior analyst was already seated. Melis. She had spent over 40 cycles watching species die. First field mission? She asked without turning. Yes, senior observer. She exhaled slowly. Then don't expect anything memorable. Humans are unremarkable. Valoric took his station. He reviewed their files? Thoroughly, Melis replied. Average strength, average intelligence, crude weapons. Their only advantage is rapid population growth. Then why send observers at all? Valoric asked. Protocol, she said. Every species is archived before removal. Completeness matters. She finally looked at him. You'll write your report, she said, and humans will become another forgotten entry in the Dominion records. The journey to Meridian 7 took 4 days. Valoric spent every hour reviewing available data on humanity. There wasn't much. Small border skirmishes, trade disputes, minor conflicts with neighboring species. Humans avoided large-scale war whenever possible. They prefer diplomacy, Valoric muttered. Species like that never lasted. The galaxy rewarded brutality, not restraint. When the ship exited faster than light travel, Valoric's breath caught. Meridian 7 was beautiful. Vast oceans shimmered beneath the yellow glow of its star. Green continents stretched across the surface, dotted with clouds. The human colony sat on the largest landmass, a modest settlement surrounded by farmland. Above it all, 12 massive Kravasi warships waited in orbit, weapons charged. Transport vessels detached and began their descent. Observation systems online, Melis announced. Begin recording. Valoric activated his sensors and focused on the colony. He expected chaos. Evacuation attempts. Panic. Desperate signals begging for mercy. Instead, they're building defenses, Valoric said slowly. Humans move with calm efficiency. Trenches were dug, barricades erected, weapons positioned. Civilians assisted soldiers without hesitation. No screaming, no fleeing. They're not evacuating, Valoric said. They can't, Mellis replied. Or they're too foolish to understand what's coming. Valoric zoomed in. Human soldiers checked weapons. Officers consulted maps. Faces were tense, but steady. One man stood at the center of it all. Commander Danny Cole, the colony's military leader. Valoric analyzed his posture, his movements, his expression. Cole was calm, focused, almost confident. That's odd, Valoric murmured. What is? Mellis asked. He's not afraid. The Kravasi landing began at midday. Hundreds of dropships descended, depositing thousands of skilled warriors outside the human defensive perimeter. They formed ranks, towering over the terrain, weapons gleaming. Their commander delivered a speech, boasting of Kravasi honor, mocking human weakness. The humans said nothing. They waited. First wave advancing, Mellis noted. 3,000 warriors. The Kravasi charged, roaring, the ground trembling beneath their advance. The humans did not fire. They're letting them get closer, Valoric said. Fear, Mellis replied, or poor weapon range. But Valoric watched the humans' hands. Steady, controlled. Commander Cole stood behind the lines, arms crossed. Smiling, Valoric felt a chill crawl down his spine. This isn't fear, he whispered. The Kravasi reached optimal distance, and every human weapon fired at once. The battlefield erupted. Fire, metal, thunder. The front ranks of the Kravasi army vanished. Valoric stared, frozen, as bodies fell where moments earlier warriors had charged. The humans fired again, and again. The advance collapsed. Silence filled the observation deck. This wasn't supposed to happen, Valoric whispered. Beside him, Mellis said nothing. The war for Meridian 7 had begun, and for the first time in his life, Valoric realized the Dominion might have made a terrible mistake. The first assault ended faster than anyone aboard the observation vessel had expected. 40 minutes. That was all it took for the Kravasi advance to collapse into disarray. Valoric replayed the combat footage again, his claws hovering over the console as if the numbers might rearrange themselves if he stared long enough. The data refused to change. Human casualties, 47 killed or wounded. Kravasi casualties, over 1,000 dead. That's not a statistical anomaly, Valoric muttered. That's a pattern. Mellis finally spoke, her voice lower than before. Recalculate. Perhaps the sensors misread. They didn't, Valoric interrupted gently. I checked 3 times. On the battlefield below, Kravasi survivors dragged their wounded back toward the landing zone. Their formations were broken. Their confidence, once overwhelming, had evaporated. The humans did not pursue. They reloaded. They reinforced their trenches. They prepared. They're not celebrating, Valoric noted. Why would they? Mellis replied, though her tone lacked conviction. They've only delayed the inevitable. But Valoric wasn't watching the numbers anymore. He was watching behavior. On the eastern defensive sector, human forces were dangerously thin. Only 200 soldiers held that stretch of the line, far fewer than Kravasi had assaulted there. It was also where the fighting had been fiercest. Valoric isolated the feed. A young officer moved along the trench, stopping at each soldier. She crouched beside the wounded, gripped shoulders, spoke words Valoric couldn't hear. But the effect was unmistakable. Soldiers straightened. Fear retreated. Lieutenant Lisa Grant, Valoric read aloud. She should rotate off the line, Mellis said. Fatigue will degrade performance. Grant did not rotate. She returned to the front, rifle ready. She leads in the front, Valoric observed. Not from safety. Emotion, Mellis replied. That gets commanders killed. Yet, Grant was still standing. 2 hours later, the Kravasi launched their second assault. This time they adapted. Landing ships provided suppressive fire. Energy blasts tore into the ground, forcing human defenders to duck behind cover. Dust and debris filled the air. Valoric leaned forward. They're changing tactics. So will the humans, Mela said, though uncertainty crept into her voice. She was right. Commander Cole responded instantly. Human troops withdrew, not in panic, but with precision, falling back to secondary positions already prepared. Firing lanes shifted, weapons retargeted. Several human units began firing upward. Why are they targeting the dropships? Valoric asked. Desperation, Mela said. Then a Kravasi transport exploded midair. Another veered away. Damaged. They're denying air superiority, Valoric whispered. The humans had adjusted within minutes. The Kravasi reached the outer trenches. Close combat began. This was where the humans should have broken. The Kravasi were larger, stronger, built for violence. Their claws and scaled armor made them lethal in confined spaces. Valoric expected to see humans overwhelmed. Instead, he watched something far worse. Human squads fought in pairs, then trios, covering angles flawlessly. They retreated step by step, drawing Kravasi into narrow passages where numbers meant nothing. Every fallen human was replaced instantly. Every breach was sealed. They're flowing, Valoric said, struggling to describe it, like a single organism. At one choke point, a single human squad held off hundreds. The squad leader, dust-covered, bleeding, gave calm hand signals. His soldiers obeyed without hesitation. When it ended, 200 Kravasi lay dead, for humans had fallen. Melis stood slowly from her chair. This defies doctrine, she said quietly. No, Valoric replied. It defies assumptions. Lieutenant Grant led a counterattack on the eastern flank. Valoric watched her take an energy blast to the shoulder. The impact spun her around. She did not fall. She staggered, regained her footing, and kept firing. She's injured, Mela said sharply. She must retreat. She won't, Valoric replied. Grant drove the Kravasi back, reclaiming the damaged wall section inch by inch. Her soldiers followed her without hesitation. The second assault ended like the first. Failure. Human losses were higher this time, nearly 100 dead or wounded. But the line held. Commander Cole moved among his troops afterward, helping carry the wounded, speaking quietly, shaking hands. He doesn't command from above, Valoric said. He shares their risk. Melis didn't answer. Valoric pulled deeper data. Human endurance metrics exceeded biological projections. Injury tolerance was extreme. Coordination bordered on instinctive. They communicate without speaking, Valoric said, highlighting visual markers, gestures, eye contact, micro movements. That requires enormous training, Melis said. And history, Valoric added. He accessed older human records. War after war. Conflict spanning thousands of years. They hadn't learned peace. They had mastered violence. Not out of cruelty, but necessity. The sun set on Meridian 7, bathing the battlefield in red and gold. Kravasi movement slowed. Hesitation crept into their ranks. The humans waited. Then, movement detected. Melis said, Eastern perimeter. Valoric adjusted sensors. A small human team slipped into the darkness. 12 soldiers. No lights. No sound. They're leaving their defenses, Valoric whispered. Why? He watched as the team bypassed Kravasi guards like ghosts. 20 minutes later, explosions lit the horizon. Supply depots, fuel reserves, ammunition caches, all destroyed simultaneously. The human team vanished back into the night. They attacked while exhausted. Valoric said in disbelief. Melis stared at the screen, her face pale. They don't just defend, she whispered. They hunt. And Valoric realized something terrifying. The Kravasi weren't fighting an army. They were fighting a species that had turned survival into an art. Night swallowed Meridian 7, but darkness brought no peace. Thermal sensors revealed movement everywhere. Human patrols shifting positions, rotating watches, reinforcing weak points. They did not rest the way other species rested. They rested in pieces, in turns, in moments stolen between duties. The Kravasi camp, by contrast, glowed like a wounded animal. Fires burned. Warriors gathered in tight clusters. Guards were posted, but their movements were sluggish, their vigilance dulled by exhaustion and frustration. "They're trying to recover," Valoric said softly. "They won't," Melis replied. She was right. The first night raid struck without warning. A series of silent detonations ripped through the outer perimeter of the Kravasi encampment. Communication towers collapsed. Medical tents burned. The night erupted with confusion and screaming. Valoric tracked the human teams as they withdrew, slipping back through darkness before organized resistance could form. "They're not aiming to kill," he observed. "They're targeting function." "Logistics," Mela said. "Without supplies, an army bleeds itself dry." The raids continued, for more strikes before dawn, each one precise, each one brief. The Kravasi never found their attackers. By morning, the invaders looked worse than the defenders. Valor compiled everything. Human doctrine did not resemble anything in the Dominion archives. Most species fought to protect territory or preserve life. When defeat became mathematically inevitable, surrender followed. Humans ignored mathematics. "They fight when they shouldn't," Valoric said, scrolling through casualty projections. "They attack when exhausted. They defend when outnumbered." Melis leaned back, her eyes hollow. "Why?" Valoric replayed footage of a human medic dragging a wounded soldier through gunfire. "That," he said. "Emotion," Melis replied. "No," Valoric corrected. "Connection." Humans fought for individuals, not abstractions. The Kravasi commander requested orbital bombardment. Valoric intercepted the transmission. "These creatures will not break," the commander snarled. "Authorize planetary fire. End this." The Selvari admiral refused. "We are observers," he said. "High command wants data." Valoric understood the real reason: fear. The third assault came at midday. 2,000 Kravasi warriors advanced with armored vehicles. Human defenses shifted instantly. Vehicles were disabled within minutes. Firing lanes changed. Traps activated. Then the humans retreated. "They're yielding ground," Melis said. "No," Valoric replied. "They're luring." The Kravasi pushed forward. Human units emerged from hidden positions, sealing exits. Encirclement. Commander Cole offered surrender. The Kravasi refused. 3 hours later, none remained. 2,000 attackers. Gone. Human losses, just over 100. Melis stood, trembling. "I want to leave." "We can't," Valoric said. Day 3 dawn read. The Kravasi had 8,000 warriors left. The humans had fewer than 600. A rational species would surrender. Humans consolidated. "This is their final stand," Melis whispered. Valoric watched Commander Cole move through his troops, speaking quietly, steadying hands, restoring resolve. He didn't promise survival. He promised resistance. The final Kravasi assault began at noon. 8,000 warriors attacked from all sides. Human fire was constant. Buildings fell. Lines bent, but did not break. Close combat consumed the colony. Valoric watched a single human guard a doorway for 20 minutes, his weapon failing one by one until only a blade remained. 17 Kravasi died before he fell. "Why won't they stop?" Valoric whispered. "They can't," Melis said. "Not anymore." Then something changed. Civilians emerged. Engineers, farmers, medics. Every human who could stand joined the defense. "This isn't an army," Valoric breathed. "It's a people." The Kravasi morale shattered. Units broke. Retreat turned into panic. By sunset, the invaders fled. Victory belonged to the humans. Valoric watched Commander Cole stand among the ruins, bloody but unbroken. The humans mourned. Then they rebuilt, and Valoric knew the truth. Humanity was not weak. Humanity was inevitable. The battlefield of Meridian 7 went quiet in a way Valoric had never witnessed before. Not the silence of defeat, the silence of disbelief. Smoke drifted through shattered streets and broken walls. Fires burned where buildings once stood, yet beneath the destruction, the humans moved slowly, deliberately, tending to wounded, pulling survivors from rubble, forming lines where chaos should have ruled. They had just survived what should have been extinction. They're not pursuing, Mela said quietly. No, Valoric replied. They're consolidating. Human medics worked without pause. Soldiers helped civilians. Civilians helped soldiers. There was no visible hierarchy now, only purpose. They lost hundreds, Melis whispered. Most species would collapse after losses like this. But they didn't, Valoric said, because loss, he realized, was not unfamiliar to humans. The Kravasi retreat was disorderly. Warriors fled toward extraction zones without formation, without command cohesion. Their once proud banners lay abandoned in the mud. Valoric intercepted fragmented communications. They are monsters. They won't die. They fight even when broken. Fear had entered the Kravasi language. Back aboard the observation vessel, Valoric began drafting a new classification entry. Humanity, active threat potential, extreme. He hesitated. No, that wasn't enough. High command transmissions flooded the channel. How did the humans survive? Explain casualty ratios. Were Kravasi commanders incompetent? Valoric answered with data. But data alone could not explain what he had seen. Commander Cole stood at the center of the colony, speaking to survivors. He did not give a speech of triumph. He spoke names. Each fallen soldier, each civilian, one by one. Valoric watched humans bow their heads, not in despair, but in recognition. They carried their dead with reverence. They honor loss, Valoric said softly. They let it hurt, Melis replied. Then they keep going. Later, Valoric focused on a small moment. A human child clung to a soldier's leg. Crying, the soldier knelt, whispered something, and handed the child a small metal emblem. The child stopped crying. What was that? Valoric asked. A symbol, Melis said. Humans use them to remember. To remember pain, to remember why they fight. The Selvari admiral requested a private channel. This outcome was unexpected, the admiral said carefully. Humans adapt faster than projected, Valoric replied. They are not a defensive species. They are a retaliatory one. The admiral paused. You recommend disengagement? Valoric didn't answer immediately. I recommend caution, he said at last. Extreme caution. Over the next 2 days, the Kravasi fleet withdrew completely. No final strike. No orbital fire. They left Meridian 7 scarred, but unconquered. Valoric continued observing. Humans rebuild defenses even after victory. They expect another attack, Melis said. They always do, Valoric replied. Hope, he realized, did not make humans careless. Hope made them prepare. Melis stopped coming to the observation deck. When Valoric checked on her, she sat alone in her quarters, lights dimmed. I've seen dozens of species die, she said without looking at him. None fought like this. What frightens you? Valoric asked. That they were kind, she replied, even while killing. Valoric returned to his console and reviewed everything again. Human strategy was not rooted in dominance. It was rooted in refusal. Refusal to abandon each other. Refusal to accept extinction. Refusal to yield, no matter the cost. That refusal changed outcomes. He added a new section to his report. Humans do not wage war to conquer. They wage war to end the threat permanently. That made them far more dangerous. Before departure, Valoric watched Meridian 7 one last time. Fields were being replanted, homes rebuilt, graves marked carefully. Life resumed, not because the humans had forgotten the war, but because they carried it with them. Commander Cole stood at the edge of the colony, staring toward the sky. Valoric felt certain the man knew he was being watched. Cole raised his hand, not in greeting, not in threat. A simple acknowledgement. We see you too. The observation vessel powered up for departure. As the planet shrank into a distant point of light, Valoric felt something unfamiliar settle in his chest. Respect. And fear, not of human weapons, but of human resolve. The observation vessel left orbit in silence. No one spoke as Meridian 7 faded into the darkness behind them. The planet shrank from a wounded world of fire and ash into a quiet point of light, indistinguishable from the thousands of others scattered across the void. Yet Valoric could not look away. He felt as though turning his eyes from that fading star would mean denying what he had witnessed, denying the truth that had burned itself into his mind. "They'll rebuild," he said quietly. Melis stood beside him at the viewport. "Yes," she replied, "and they'll remember." That, Valoric realized, was what unsettled her most. Most conquered species try to forget. Humans did not. The return journey took 4 days. 4 days of reports, data analysis, and silent reflection. Valoric worked continuously, organizing footage and tactical breakdowns. He compared projections with reality, doctrine with outcome. Every calculation reinforced the same conclusion. Humanity was an anomaly. They lacked technological superiority. They lacked numerical advantage. They lacked galactic experience. Yet, none of that mattered, because humans compensated with something no algorithm could measure. Melis stopped assisting entirely. She remained in her quarters, refusing further review. When Valoric finally convinced her to speak, she looked smaller. "I used to believe war was simple," she said. "Power versus weakness. Survival of the efficient. And now," Valoric asked, "now I think efficiency isn't what wins wars," she said. "Commitment does." She met his eyes. "And humans have no upper limit." Upon arrival in Salvari space, Valoric was summoned immediately. High Commander Talon's chamber felt colder than before. The walls were adorned with relics taken from fallen civilizations. Weapons, banners, bones turned into symbols of triumph. Talon studied Valoric in silence. "Your report has disrupted projections across 3 strategic divisions," the commander said at last. "That was not my intention," Valoric replied. "Intent is irrelevant," Talon said. "Truth often is." He activated a holographic display. Casualty charts, battle maps, probability curves. "Explain," Talon said. "How did 800 defenders defeat 12,000 Kravasi?" Valoric took a breath. "They did not fight to survive," he said. "They fought to deny victory." Talon's eyes narrowed. "Clarify." "Most species withdraw when losses outweigh gains," Valoric explained. "Humans do not. Loss increases their resistance. Pain sharpens their focus. Each casualty deepens their resolve. That is irrational." "Yes," Valoric said calmly, "and therefore effective." Talon circled the chamber slowly. "You recommend we avoid direct conflict with humanity," he said. "This contradicts Dominion doctrine." "It corrects it," Valoric replied. Talon stopped. "You are suggesting fear." "No," Valoric said. "I am suggesting respect." There was a long silence. "You watch them closely," Talon said. "Tell me, are they cruel?" Valoric thought of medics dragging the wounded through fire, of civilians shielding soldiers, of Commander Cole carrying the dead. "No," Valoric said. "They are not cruel. Then why do you fear them?" "Because," Valoric said slowly, "they will do terrible things for reasons we would call virtuous." The council chamber erupted in debate. Some commanders dismissed Valoric's conclusions as emotional contamination. Others replayed the footage again and again, searching for flaws. There were none. A junior strategist spoke quietly. If they had superior technology, would anything stop them? No one answered. That night, Valoric returned to his quarters. Sleep would not come. He activated a personal star map and highlighted human control systems. Small, sparse, growing. "They're learning," he whispered. Every battle would teach them more. Every loss would sharpen them further. Across the galaxy, news of Meridian 7 spread. Not officially. In whispers. A Kravasi warlord resigned. A mercenary guild blacklisted human territories. Border patrols quietly altered course. Fear does not announce itself. It adjusts behavior. Valoric received a final message from Melis before she requested reassignment away from field observation. "I can catalog extinct species," she wrote. I cannot catalog what comes next. Valoric understood. Humans were not a chapter nearing its end. They were a prologue. He amended the final section of his report. Humanity does not seek war, but when war finds them, they transform it. They do not break under pressure. Pressure defines them. Any power that mistakes restraint for weakness will not survive the lesson that follows. He transmitted the document. Once sent, it cannot be recalled. Valoric stood at the viewport again, staring into deep space. For the first time since Meridian 7, he felt small, not powerless, aware. The galaxy had grown more dangerous, not because of new weapons or rising empires, but because one species had reminded the universe what it meant to refuse extinction. And Valoric knew, with chilling certainty, that this knowledge had a cost. Once you understood humanity, you could never unknow it. The galaxy did not change overnight. That was the most dangerous part. There were no alarms, no sudden mobilizations, no grand declarations from the Dominion Council. Trade routes continued. Border skirmishes flared and faded as they always had. The stars looked the same. But beneath the surface, something fundamental had shifted. Valoric saw it in the data first. Shipping lanes adjusted slightly away from human-controlled space. Long-range patrols increased their distance by fractions that meant nothing on a map, but everything in intent. Intelligence requests regarding human psychology tripled within a single cycle. Fear, Valoric realized, rarely announced itself loudly. It whispered. High Commander Talon summoned Valoric again 3 cycles after Meridian 7. This time, the chamber felt different. The trophies were still there, but they no longer looked like symbols of strength. They looked like warnings frozen in time, reminders of species that had failed to adapt quickly enough. You have become a point of reference, Talon said, studying Valoric with narrowed eyes. I did not intend to, Valoric replied. Intent is irrelevant, Talon said. Your report has been circulated beyond its original clearance. That alone sent a chill through Valoric. Some within the council believe you overstated the threat. Talon continued. Others believe you did not go far enough. Valoric said nothing. Tell me, Talon said, leaning forward, what do humans do next? Valoric hesitated. I don't know, he admitted, and that is precisely the danger. He explained carefully. Humans did not follow predictable expansion patterns. They did not conquer indiscriminately. They did not retaliate immediately. They remembered. They cataloged threats the way we catalog resources, Valoric said. They don't rush. They prepare. Talon's fingers tightened against the table. You believe they are watching us. I know they are, Valoric replied, because that is what they do after surviving. New footage arrived from Meridian 7. Reconstruction had accelerated. Defensive systems were being rebuilt stronger than before. Training facilities expanded. Civilians drilled alongside soldiers. They're militarizing, a council analyst said. No, Valoric corrected. They're normalizing readiness. There was a difference. One could be switched off. The other could not. Then came the intercepted transmission. A human diplomatic probe had contacted a neighboring neutral species, not to demand allegiance, not to threaten, to warn. They told them what happens when you underestimate us. Valoric translated softly. The council chamber fell silent. Humans were not spreading fear through conquest. They were spreading memory. Melis reappeared once, older, thinner, her eyes sharper. I reviewed more footage, she said quietly. I was wrong before. About what? Valoric asked. I thought humans were terrifying because they were violent, she said. They're terrifying because they're patient. She paused. And because they don't forget who tried to erase them. Strategic simulations began. Every scenario involving direct war with humanity ended the same way. Initial victories, mounting resistance, escalation without surrender, total attrition, no decisive endpoint. The simulations did not predict defeat. They predicted exhaustion, collapse, a war humanity would survive, even if no one else did. The council demanded a final assessment, not probabilities, a conclusion. Valoric stood before them, aware that his words would ripple far beyond the chamber. Humanity is not an existential threat, he said. Several commanders relaxed. They are a reactive certainty, Valor continued. Silence returned. If left alone, they will build, trade, explore. If attacked, they will remember. And they will respond, not immediately, not recklessly, but permanently. He looked directly at Talon. You can defeat humans in battles, Valoric said, but you cannot defeat the idea they become once attacked. That night, Valoric updated his personal log. He wrote something he never intended to submit officially. We fear weapons because they end lives. We fear humans because they redefine survival. They do not ask whether war is winnable. They ask whether it is necessary. And once they decide it is, they do not stop. Across the galaxy, human colonies continue to grow. Quietly, deliberately, not as conquerors, as survivors who had learned a universal truth. The universe respects only those who refuse to disappear. Valoric stared at the stars long after the lights dimmed. He wondered if humanity knew what they had become in the eyes of the galaxy. Then he remembered Commander Cole's expression on Meridian 7. Calm, resolved, aware. Yes, Valoric thought. They knew, and that knowledge made the final truth unavoidable. The next time humanity fought, it would not be to survive. It would be to end the threat forever. The final decision of the Dominion Council was never announced publicly. There was no decree etched into archives, no proclamation broadcast across the stars. Officially, nothing changed. Borders remained the same. Fleets maintained routine patrols. Trade agreements continued as if the galaxy were still operating under old assumptions. But in classified corridors, Meridian 7 became a reference point, a lesson, a line that would never be crossed again. Valoric stood alone in the deep observation chamber weeks later, staring at a live star map. Human-controlled systems glowed faintly on the edge of known space, small, scattered, deceptively fragile. Yet, no commander present could look at those points without remembering the footage. 800 defenders, 12,000 attackers. One outcome. Fear does not need numbers to spread. High Commander Talon summoned Valoric one last time. The commander looked older now. The scars on his skin seemed deeper, heavier, as if the weight of unseen futures pressed down on him. The council has accepted your recommendation, Talon said at last. Valoric's breath caught. Accepted? No open conflict with humanity. Talon continued. No forced expansion into their territory. No test of strength. A pause. They will be observed, Talon said, respected, avoided. The word felt unnatural in the chamber. Respected. And if they expand? Talon asked. Valoric answered without hesitation. Let them. Talon studied him. You believe they will not become conquerors? Valoric shook his head slowly. No, he said, but they will become something worse, if we give them a reason. After the meeting, Valoric returned to his quarters and accessed restricted human archives one final time. He watched footage not of battle, but aftermath. Children helping rebuild homes. Soldiers teaching civilians how to reinforce walls. Commanders burying the dead with their own hands. Humans did not glorify war. They absorbed it. They carried it forward as memory. That was the difference. Years passed. Meridian 7 faded into history, but not into myth. Human diplomats traveled carefully, speaking softly, never threatening. They warned neighboring species of the cost of underestimation, not with boasts, but with honesty. We don't want war, they said, but we will finish it if force. Those words spread farther than any fleet. Valoric rose in rank. He became an advisor, not because he had answers, but because he understood the question no one else wanted to ask. What happens when a species refuses extinction as a concept? The answer haunted every strategy meeting. One cycle. A junior analyst asked Valoric something that chilled him. If humans are so dangerous, the analyst said, why don't they rule the galaxy already? Valoric considered the question carefully. Because, he said, they haven't needed to. Yet, late one night, Valoric received an unencrypted human broadcast. It was not directed at him personally. It was not hostile. It was a historical record. Public, open, unfiltered. Human wars, human losses, human mistakes. And at the end, a simple statement. We survived ourselves. Do not ask us to survive you. Valoric closed the transmission with trembling hands. He finally understood. The galaxy had always feared monsters, clawed creatures, ruthless empires, world-ending weapons. But humanity was none of those things. Humanity was farmers who picked up rifles, doctors who ran into fire, civilians who became soldiers because there was no one else left. They were terrifying not because they loved war, but because they loved each other more. Valoric recorded his final personal log. It would never be submitted. We catalog species by strength, intelligence, and technology. Humanity taught us a missing category: refusal. Refusal to surrender. Refusal to abandon their own. Refusal to disappear quietly. The galaxy will survive many tyrants, but it may not survive a united humanity. If humanity ever decides survival is no longer enough. From the edge of known space, human colonies continued to grow, not aggressively, relentlessly, like roots pushing through stone. The galaxy watched, and for the first time in recorded history, it waited, because somewhere, deep in every strategic projection and every unspoken fear, one truth had become undeniable. Humanity was not the end of the galaxy, but if the galaxy ever forced them to choose, humanity would be the last thing left standing.